All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. Before I get started, this album by Mickey and the Motor Cars. I don't know if you can zoom in on this. Let me see here. Let me go really close to the camera. Long time coming. That's the name of the album. Music from West Texas. I've been really hooked on this stuff lately. Check it out. It might not be for you, but I am so bored with today's so-called mainstream rock music, much like back in the 90s, where I decided that I wasn't going to be listening to rock stations anymore. And I got into country music. Now I've gone down a rabbit trail of music and now am sort of based when it comes to country music. I want better and I want more authentic. And so Mickey and the Motor Cars doesn't sound like a country band. It sounds like, I don't know, a new wave band from like the early 80s. But what can I tell you, right? You just have to go where your ears tell you to go. This David Lee Roth drama with the Van Halen reunion, it continues to unfold as now Eddie Trunk has weighed in. Now, I've had my issues with Eddie Trunk, but he does what he does really well. He's consistent. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people do like him. It's typical. A lot of people hate me. A lot of people like me. And with his information, I think he's pretty guarded with it. I think if he gets something, he tends to let it out there because, again, he wants to get people to listen to his show. And he's got information apparently about David Lee Roth and that he is the guy holding up the so-called Van Halen tribute or Van Halen reunion. This is what Eddie Trunk said. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that David Lee Roth is a difficult guy to wrangle. I'm not sure what the word wrangle means. I mean, it kind of sounds like a term you would use in the Old West, where you would wrestle somebody to the ground and try to get them to do what you want them to do. Or it could be a word that is expressing how you can't pin him down. But he goes on to clarify: a difficult guy to get an answer on, a difficult guy to get focused on anything, a difficult guy to get to sign off on anything. He is all over the map, as you would expect and have seen throughout history. That the big holdup in anything happening with Van Halen is not Alex, who wants to do it and who is trying now. Recently, we've heard that Alex was in no rush to do this reunion thing or this tribute thing. But again, Eddie Trunk goes on to say it's actually Roth who needs to sign off and be involved. Also, contrary to any reports of anything different, Alex and Michael Anthony, are totally cool, and there's no issue there at all. And the stumbling block is trying to get Alex and Dave on the same page, and Dave wanting to do this and how they're going to do it. And that's really one of the big stumbling issues. And it did not escape anybody, as I've said before. You've got two Taylor Hawkins tributes in two different countries announced 2 months after Taylor passed. And here we are coming up on 2 years after Eddie Van Halen's death, and they can't figure out anything for Eddie. It's crazy. Hopefully that'll be corrected. So really good point about the Taylor Hawkins thing. There are many of us in this audience who were scratching our heads going, Taylor Hawkins? Yeah, he's the guy who was the drummer for the Foo Fighters. And apparently he was a world-renowned drummer and was loved by everybody in the industry. All right. And he had a real substance abuse problem for many, many years. And people loved him, but apparently they didn't love him enough to intervene on his behalf so he would stop doing this stuff. I'm not a fan of the Foo Fighters. I don't really care about them musically. It is a really tragic and sad story. The point that he's making here, and it's a really good point, is that Eddie Van Halen slightly more important than Taylor Hawkins. Just saying. Just it's one of those, yeah, obvious statements. It's not really controversial to say that Eddie was a much bigger deal. If Taylor Hawkins were still here, I'm sure he'd tell you that Eddie is a bigger deal than he was. All right. So it's the typical stuff with Van Halen. Van Halen close to the vest, not going to spill the beans. Dave, who announced his retirement. Remember this. I have somebody on the page here who likes to constantly remind me that, Dave, I think, doesn't want to do this stuff anymore. He alluded to his doctor and doctor's orders. And then he's talking about how, you need position players out there who can fill in. And yeah, you need somebody who can fill in for David Lee Roth. How about Sammy Hagar? How about they just go right to the 5150 era, as I'll call it, right? Just go right past all of this and get Sammy. Sammy will do it, right? That that phone call could be made and Dave could be left in the dust. But I think the way Van Halen ended, it ended with Dave as their official lead singer. So maybe there's a contract there that they can't weasel out of. They'd like to kind of bypass that and just do their own thing. And who knows, maybe they're afraid Roth will sue if they try to do this without him and get Sammy. And maybe Sammy and Alex aren't cool. We just don't know, because based on what everybody's telling me constantly is that when Sammy burned that bridge, that bridge was charred to nothing. It was just like burnt to a crisp. And I guess maybe there are still some lingering issues there, but we just don't know. The point being is the Roth reunion doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Eddie Trunk is upset about it. This is good for business as far as a show like mine, a show like Eddie's. It's stuff for us to talk about because really we haven't had anything new to talk about in 30 years, technically. We're still talking about geezer rock bands. We're still wondering, if, Bret Michaels is going to be okay. We're worried if, Tommy Lee is going to play his entire set with Motley Crue. Video I did yesterday, I just outlined sort of the whole idea of the stadium tour. Do you really want to go? I mean, a lot of us are just like, yeah, that's not for me. It's like every day is a Woodstock where people are sweating and there's no air conditioning, obviously, and it could rain. You could get hit by lightning. And then you got bands that are just, I don't know. Who knows if they're going to play their whole set? Who knows if somebody's going to come down with that evil, dreaded thing that if you do, then the world gets flipped upside down and, you've got to cancel dates and then probably contracts get broken and it's a mess. It's a mess. And this is the concert industry moving forward. I think Eddie Trunk and a lot of these guys who do commentary on sort of what's going to happen next between the soap opera here, one guy, the other guy, David Lee Roth, they really ought to be focusing on the industry in general and how this is ridiculous what they're requiring people to do. It's ridiculous. And because they all bought into that narrative and nobody has repented yet, because as soon as you repent, you're going to get all the bad headlines and all the rock publications. You're going to get all, and there's still, I read this story yesterday, Aaron Lewis, right? Lead singer of Stained. He's very outspoken on a number of issues, and they absolutely trashed him because he's a conspiracy theorist, because he didn't trust the science, yada, yada, yada. And they're still holding on to this 2+ years later, and they don't recognize how ridiculous their point of view is right now. It may have been okay the first few months when this happened, during the height of the fear that was generated, again, by the 6 major media companies, one of which Eddie Trunk works for. And all of these high profile guys in media work for these people. So they have to kind of toe the line. They have to say, yeah. This is a good way of dealing with this, And I don't know. I think maybe Roth is scared himself to be out there. He probably, no, I'm not risking my life, because not only is he buying into the narrative, he is the narrative. He's part of that narrative. He had a he had a cartoon that he did on Twitter where he was praising the current occupant in the White House, because supposedly, because of his entry into the Oval Office, things were magically better when it came to the thing. And that is not true. In fact, it actually seemed to get worse, especially if you look at the numbers from the last couple of years. And I'm not saying the guy prior ramped up Operation Warp Speed or whatever it was, right? So in any event, I go off on that tangent because these guys are just kind of concerned about, the soap opera nature of, this should happen and it's not happening, and it's too bad it's not happening, and it's Dave's fault, and probably is Dave's fault. In the meantime, you got this industry over here that's really struggling. And then you've got this economy that's making it even worse. And, are these concerts, how about do a show about how concert tickets are ridiculous? How about doing a show where these bands that everybody wants to go see just are very diminished compared to their former selves? And I'm not saying that this isn't being talked about, but it is kind of like the elephant in the room. Do you want to really go see David Lee Roth in his current capacity, his current diminished capacity? Did you see him when he was in Las Vegas? And I had some people say, I couldn't, it was unwatchable. And then I had other people say, well, Dave's never been really that good live. Okay, well, there's a difference between never been really that good live and being a disaster live. Like you're not hitting your marks versus your vocals are atrocious. And I could go out there and pretend I'm singing Van Halen music and let out a yell over here and talk through some lyrics over there and do this with a microphone so the other people in the audience will sing it. This is what's going on right now, and people are paying top dollar to see this. So I think that's the bigger issue than whether or not there will be a tribute. There should have been a tribute already to Eddie Van Halen, and it's frightening that there hasn't been one yet. There's frightening, especially based, maybe that's a strong word. It's scary. It's somewhat scary. Taylor Hawkins, yeah. I'm like, really? They're doing a tribute for Taylor Hawkins and they still haven't done one for Eddie Van Halen yet. All right, people, that's the video. This is what I'm listening to today. It doesn't mean, well, it's backwards and upside down here. It's a little bit early in the day for me. So just getting my bearings straight. You don't have to come along with my weird musical ride here. I'm in West Texas, cruising past the tumbleweeds and having a good time. Just at least they're making original music and it's listenable and they know how to play their instruments and there's no auto tune. There's no, computer technology that's dominating the song. There's no thumping and there's no hip hop beat in the background. And some of these country guys like Morgan Wallen, who's got the #1 song in the country right now, he's got a hip hop beat in the song. I'm just shaking my head going, country needs to be country, people. But that's just one man's opinion. All right, way off track here. Thanks for watching the video and have a great 4th of July and a great summer for that matter. Say if you can afford to go on a vacation and you are vacationing, enjoy, blow off some steam, put on some great music and have a good time. All right, see you soon.